How's it going, everyone? Panyo here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I want to highly encourage everyone that's watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord, which is where the community lives. This is where people that are collectors, artists, everyone that kind of gets together. Fantastic group of people. So I highly recommend you guys or everyone join the Art Blocks Discord. People will be chatting in the Art Blocks Mints channel in case you are tuning into the live stream. A link to the Discord can be found in the description of this video. As usual, we have gas prices over here to the top right. They'll update about every 10 to 15 seconds. And finally, just like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the episodes in the future. And, without further ado, I want to introduce our fantastic guest this evening. We have a photographer, art block collector, and member of the art block curation board, pixelpete.
Hi, guys.
And then we also have art block collector and AlgoBot enthusiast, Dandelion.
Hello, everyone.
And without further ado, I want to kind of get started. We have a ton of questions for Pixelpete. Thank you for being on this evening. Later on, Snowfro will jump on. We will do a giveaway later on this show. But yeah, Pixelpete, first off, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you are on the Art Blocks curation board. I kind of want to just start from the beginning. How did you learn about Art Blocks?
Snowfro, Eric, and I go way back. So I have been similar to Danny, his brother, part of these conversations for a really long time. Eric had this seed of an idea in 2017 or something, and he would always sort of talk our ears off, all of our friends, over and over and over. And I think a lot of us had a hard time wrapping our minds around it that weren't that involved in the space. So yeah, Art Blocks was sort of a seed of an idea of his, probably in 2018, 2019, most specifically. And a few of us would get together, and he would, offload his latest ideas for the platform or for the idea, the concept. And for a while, the idea was that I would sort of be our local connection to the art community here, and I just never fully grasped it until he really wrote the script and made it happen. So,
did you think the idea was kind of crazy from the get-go, or was it something that kind of just evolved over time and you kind of understood the potential?
It definitely evolved over time, but my understanding of generative art was pretty limited, I think. So I never had like a full grasp on what that was. My experience in art is much more traditional, I think. So he would talk about these things, and he would share some of his early generative pieces, punks and glyphs and things like that. And I just, missed the ball completely. So it definitely took time for me, but and as more examples of projects and as he started sharing, more artists came to light, I think I definitely grasped it a lot more and jumped aboard.
Right on. Well, so what's your background as it relates to the art world?
Yeah, so my background just generally is I studied architecture and worked as an architect for several years, and then eventually transitioned into photography. But through my practice of architecture and then later photography, I've sort of always been involved in the arts. I've photographed a lot for the fine arts scene here in Houston, for galleries and museums. So I've had a lot of exposure that way, and it's sort of what led me to start collecting art through those relationships, and then also relationships with like local artists and things like that. And it's just sort of evolved over time.
Nice. So what's the process? So you are on the art block curation board. What is the process? From when you receive an application until something is approved.
Yeah. So we Jeff Davis gives us generally every week when projects are coming through, he'll send us 3 to 6, sometimes a little bit more projects to review, and we have a week to review them. It's a pretty simple process, really. There's a Google Doc that asks for our feedback, both our feedback on the quality of the art, the technical qualities, the just general notes on the number of iterations that they're proposing, the cost that they're proposing, all those things. And within that week, we take a look at the rink fee. We mint some test pieces and really try to feel out what the project's all about, and then vote. And it's evolved a little bit. Now we have a voting scale. Before it was just a yes no, and now it's evolved into a scale. I think we've got a few more curators on board, so it makes more sense to do that.
Okay.
So
Have
that's
you
generally it.
have you met any of the other curators, or do you know their backgrounds? Like what where in the art world they live or not?
I don't know the details of everyone for sure. I mean, I definitely I know a few. One is a local artist here that Eric and I are friends with, Carlos Pozo. He's an amazing screen printer, 3D modeling artist who is also an architect. He and I go pretty far back. Another one is Manuel Navarro, who was on the Meet the Curation board interview this week on the newsletter. Manny is an incredibly talented interior designer and a very prolific art collector in his own right, and he's honestly an inspiration of where I've like tried to become as an art collector prior to this. So those are the two that I know the best for sure, and then the rest of them, it's just an incredibly diverse group of people that I think by design. There's people that come from the high level fine art world. There's people that are artists, people that are designers and architects, and then there's people that have like a highly tech background, um, and uh, and then there's just a really good collector base in there as well. So there's this broad spectrum where I might not understand the technical aspects or the algorithm of the project very well. Um, so I vote, based on my expertise or my tastes, and then uh, we can lean on each other sometimes if we need to know if there's something really impressive happening on the back end that we might not see as people that aren't experts at that. We can lean on some of the other curation members, and we'll have these kind of free flowing conversations about the works that are up for voting.
Okay. So this is a question from the community. How much weight do you typically give, factoring social media followers when evaluating a submission for curation? Is that something, Instagram, Twitter, if they have hundreds of thousands, or if they have none, or maybe they don't even have any social media at all? Is that a factor?
I don't pay too much attention to that, but I think maybe sometimes when I'm on the fence, I will lean more into their portfolio of work, whether it's on a website or on social media channels, to get a better idea of what they've produced and who they are as an artist. But I think my first instinct is to just like look at the work, as it is, and not maybe look at the name. And maybe it helps that I don't know a lot of these people because I'm still relatively new to the generative art community. So I first look at it on face value, and then I sort of dive a little deeper just to understand who these people are and what their CV might contain, and just go from there.
Okay. And then this is a question from from a generative artist on our platform, Aaron Penne. He said, "How does the curation board plan to increase inclusivity of underrepresented people while maintaining a high bar?"
Yeah, I think it's to date more reflective of the space than anything. So I think that there's been an effort in conversations with the curation board and the team to reach out to artists that are um, from a broad spectrum of backgrounds, to make sure that they're aware of the platform, and we're hoping to just continue that effort to get more more projects from a diverse group of creators in front of us um, that we can review without having a bias to like say we're only going to take submissions from X demographic or Y demographic. We don't want to lean so heavily on it that it's like creating the opposite problem. So, but it's like a really active conversation, both in the curation board and I think on the project team as a whole. So hopefully we start to see some more diversity uh, in all aspects coming going forward.
Cool. And then, this is another question. How do you, Art Blocks is obviously relatively new. It's been around for about 7, 8 months. How do you see Art Blocks influencing, future art in 10 years? Do you think So in 10 years, what would that look like, and how does that factor in your curation process?
I would love to know what it looks like. I like as we talked about earlier. Eric's jumped in since we started, but I had a I've been sort of slow to come around to generative art in our 4 or 5 years of talking about this. So I've been this past year has been pretty amazing and like really evolving my tastes and uh, my like portfolio of what I consider like sort of collectible art and things that I would like to have around. So um, I wouldn't even begin to try to predict what's going to happen in the next 10 years. But I think what I'm really looking forward to, especially after having spent some time in this space, is already we're seeing people explore new ways of minting and of like joining pieces together, whether it's through self curation, which is this sort of naturally evolving thing in the community, or um, we see a lot of physical prints that are coming with work, and I think that's because that's the easiest way for us to relate what we know in the like traditional art community to what we're dealing with right now. But I think it's just a matter of time until um, we see like I've been chatting with Jay-Z Labs, Jason, about a project that he's possibly working on that may involve it's a collaboration with somebody else, and there may be some physical pieces available for that. And we see with like Tyler Hobbs's recent piece that he did that auction for the hand painted piece, which is really exciting. So I think there is a strong likelihood that we'll see three-dimensional work come out of this, whether it's something that you produce at home on a 3D printer, or if it's something that is a collaborative with someone who's a three-dimensional artist. And um, I think there's like in Alida Sun's new project that's coming up, she's talked about her how it stems from some installation work that she's done in the past. And I think there could be some really interesting conversations introducing collectors to installations that normally wouldn't have that accessibility. Like a lot of times, most of my exposure to installation work has been like going to a contemporary art museum or something, and they have like this space that has been really well designed to take on some sort of immersive piece of art. And I think that one of the things that these that generative art and NFTs in general could afford us is the ability to have that like in your home or something. It can sort of make us like rethink how we think of physical art pieces that we're able to have on our own. So I just think that like the possibilities are pretty endless, and I think it's just sort of the limits are going to be the creativity of the creators more than anything. So
Yeah, I feel like we're just scratching the surface right now, and
yeah, it's pretty
I think,
exciting.
I mean, like I said, we're only 7 months in. Who knows in 1 year how things are just going to evolve over time.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I never would have projected a piece of art. Eric would have project Eric. Well, we won't get too personal about this, but this is the house that Eric used to live in. But Eric also used to project art and still does. But it's not something that I ever would have thought that I would do. Especially, I would never have like foresaw that I would collect art from someone and then like put it up on my wall with light. And that's just sort of like a mind altering way of thinking about collecting art from people that's not just like a framed two-dimensional piece, which I'm a huge fan of and will continue to collect. Thanks, buddy.
that's great. When you're looking at a piece that's considered for curation, what are 2 or 3 things that you really think that need to like stand out in order to make a project on the curation list?
Yeah, so as I touched on earlier, like I come at it from much more of an aesthetic point of view. So I'm looking for art that just like moves me personally and is like graphically really enticing to me personally, and that's uh, partially just because of the sort of art that I'm drawn to, and because maybe my background in design. So that's my first instinct, and it's not everybody's first instinct. The other thing is because these are generative projects across like generally pretty large editions. I think it's really important to look at you know as many uh, iterations as we can, and make sure that each one of those can stand alone, can stand out well on its own. Which I just can't even imagine how difficult that is, because I can't begin to understand how difficult it is to code something that can produce that sort of effect. So that I think that's pretty easy to spot, especially as you start seeing a lot of projects. So that's one thing that I'm looking for really immediately. And then just that things are really well fleshed out. And I think sometimes we see people that uh, it's pretty obvious that they have really good technical capabilities. They can code something and create a really dynamic work, but maybe it's not like graphically fully fleshed out, or maybe the color palettes that they're choosing aren't don't show like the refinement that you would want to see from like like a well practiced artist. And I think that's one of the things that'll divide people that end up in factory versus curated, as someone that like clearly has an experience that's going to produce a piece that is always going to be really pleasing to the eye on all these factors.
And do previous projects from an artist, do you look back at some of their older catalog to compare of, obviously you're looking at one specific project, you're grading it on that, but do you consider, previous work as something they could potentially do down the road?
Yeah, I think we definitely want to look at previous work, because if they have like a really broad breadth of work that's been really impressive over time, that shows that they're a really accomplished artist. That's already saying one thing. So maybe, um, I mean, we don't want to like give concessions because they've made really good one pieces, and
Yeah.
maybe they're one of a thousand pieces aren't quite as strong. Like we wouldn't just let them through. But I think you want to see what they've done in the past, both to like sort of reinforce your ideas, or maybe if you're on the edge, maybe that'll help push it over. That's not to say that someone can't come in without any sort of portfolio and like blow us away. It
Yeah.
just sort of depends on a case by case basis.
Definitely. And then, as far as, the total mint size and price, that's something a lot of people are talking about these days. Is that something that you and the curation board offer suggestions of like what the mint size should be and the price should be? Or is that something that it's fully just on the artist and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely asked to give feedback. I don't know. We all of our reviews are pretty anonymous. I mean, sometimes there's cross conversation in the curation channel, so I don't know how much everyone is weighing in on this, but every once in a while it comes up, and it's sort of an evolutionary thing, as the collectors and users of art blocks grows, we have to like constantly consider. I think more on you guys' side, on Eric's and Jeff's and all of you guys on the team, are sort of constantly thinking about how the platform lives, and how accessible projects are. But we definitely give feedback, and I think more from a curator's point of view, it's about what we think from our limited vision of the algorithm, what we think it can handle, as an output. And then price is just something that I think we'll always consider. I think um, we haven't seen any like major breaks from the norm yet, but I think that there's just a matter of time before, you know, whether it's more established traditional artists come in, or whatever we end up seeing, there might be some really unique project that has reason for being more or less. We'll just have to sort of evaluate that as it comes, but it's definitely like something that we're asked to comment on, and that is given to us in the description of the applicant's project.
Got it. And then, you don't need to be specific by saying any project names, but are there any projects that ended up in factory that could have been curated in your mind?
I'm gonna say no. I kind of chuckled when I saw this, when you sent me like the questions that might come across, because I think I don't know. Again, I don't know what other people are voting, but I think that I'm probably one of the more picky people. At least I feel really picky, and I think I've gotten more picky as it comes, and part of that has to do with, as more projects are released, the bar is just being raised higher, and not only is it being raised higher, but I think, and again, my exposure to generative art is limited, but I think that there are some like tropes in generative photography, and I don't mean that in like a negative way, and that might not be the right word, but there are I think there are sort of things that you can default at when you're trying to learn how to do things generatively, and like a lot of things are shape based, and um, some of that can start to look repetitive. So we have to like look out for that because we don't want like two projects that looked exactly the same. Not that anything's looked exactly the same, but
Yeah.
we have to be sort of conscious of what has been released so far, and as that list builds up more, it's just going to get harder and harder to create something that's completely unique and shows an artist's unique ability and intent. So yeah, no, I would say no.
Okay. And then, would you say that the process for selecting projects for curation has changed, or will be changing for the upcoming series, given an upswing in popularity on the Art Blocks platform?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I would say that Eric and Jeff can probably speak to this more than I can, but I think that I think, as I said earlier, our curation process has sort of evolved a little bit over time, and it's going to continue to evolve, obviously, as the platform evolves. So, but there's not any specific directive or anything that we have that will make Series 4 any different than the rest.
Okay. And then, you've been on the curation board for a while now. What's the most challenging part about being on the curation board?
Making decisions, man. Making decisions is hard, I think, uh, yeah, I think specifically as someone who's from outside the generative space, one of the hard things is just to sort of has been to like understand uh, what the history of generative art is, which is certainly something that I don't have a full grasp on yet, and what's possible, what makes a project technically really successful versus just visually really successful. So I think um, just continuing to be open-minded about the types of projects that are possible and what's put in front of us. And then you don't want to let people down, and sometimes there's people that are like really amazing in the community, and you have to sort of separate that and just try to be as true to your initial feelings are as possible, I think, to make sure that the work that gets put out is as strong as possible.
Got it. And then I have one final question with regards to you just being on the curation board. What type of generative art projects are you personally looking forward to seeing in the future on our blocks? Any type
Yeah,
of like
I would
style?
go back to my previous comment about the next 10 years. I just want to be surprised or impressed by like what people are thinking of, and I want to see things that aren't even on my radar, or certainly that aren't the collector's radar, as far as what we've had put in front of us. And I think um, putting two-dimensional, I mean, and I really love some of the simplest projects are the ones that I love the most, and I think are clearly some of the ones that the community has responded to the most. And so certainly I wouldn't dissuade anyone from you know as simple of a project as possible, but I think also it'll be exciting to see both the technology that supports these projects evolve, but also um, the outputs that artists are creating evolve into things that maybe we wouldn't have even imagined.
Okay. And then actually, one additional question is,
Yeah.
what is a piece of advice you would give someone that's considering to apply a project? Applications are currently paused right now, but in a couple weeks, there's an opportunity, I think, for people to apply. What's a piece of advice you would give someone that's considering to apply for to be on our blocks?
Yeah, my advice as someone who doesn't create generative art would be just to not rush yourself and really make sure that what you're putting forth is like feels completely fleshed out, and you know something that you feel is like completely finalized. Not that it has to be final to submit it, but know that you're in a place that it is something that is going to be a standout project for you, that can like stand the test of time, and is not something that you're rushing through because there's a queue of curation applicants, and you just feel like you have to get in the queue before the hype falls apart or something. I think
Hmm.
if we've learned anything in this long short time that we've been that this platform's been around, is that Artbox is a standout amongst NFT projects in particular, and that it's like here to stay. So um, be proud of what you're putting out and have confidence in it. Um, And actually, on a related note, I would say there's another thing I wanted to say that I was thinking of earlier that is not related, but it's more on the from a collector's perspective. I think it's really important for everyone to think about how, although this community has, we're like it's like a very egalitarian community, and we're all, you know, in this magic world of being peers with one another. I think it's important for people to like check themselves and understand that there's like a really wide variety of financial backgrounds in this community, and I don't think this gets talked about very much. But there's people buying like you know, like very expensive pieces of art in here, and then there's people that probably can't afford very much, but it's really easy to get caught up in like the FOMO and the hype of what's happening in block sales or whatever it's called, block
Yeah,
talk.
block talk.
So just like, you know, I think it's important just to mention that we should all sort of check ourselves every once in a while, make sure we're not spending irresponsibly or anything, and making sure that, you know, we're not all JDHs in the world and galaxies. So just make sure that we're, you know, it's a pretty incredible community that we built, that like we're able to sort of all equalize and commiserate together. But anyway,
Got it. No,
something
I
I've been
think that's
thinking
I
about.
think that's super important. You know, I think
I find myself doing it a lot. You know, I like probably push the limits of what I should be collecting sometimes. So it's just, and you know, some people have been in the crypto space for 4 or 5 years and have a much higher threshold of ability to spend. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's just super important for everyone to support each other in the community. You know, no matter what they're spending on. I know people want to like pump each other's bags and stuff, but it's just like, all right, you know, everyone's has like, we should all just be supporting each other and making sure that, you know, I mean, everyone, like you said, has different thresholds of what they can do. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think we just need to support each other. And yeah, I think everyone will have a great time in our space.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
Sorry, there's a little diversion.
no, you're totally fine. You know, all right. So as an art block collector, I met you, you know, and a few others, including Rockland, immediately after the Ringers dropped back in January. How has the art block space changed since that time, you know, many moons ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty incredible. You know, I think one of the things that surprised me more than anything is the sense of community that's just, it feels almost corny to keep talking about, but it's like there's this like family that's been built of like, you know, we it's been like 6 months and we all feel like we know each other really well, I think. And new people come in and I think they feel that immediately, which is a testament to Eric's past 5 years in this space, and the relationships that he's built and the trust that he's built and the genuineness that he evokes. So that's been like the most positive thing for me. I mean, aside from the art's been incredible, and like I said earlier, this has exposed me to a type of creativity that I had little grasp of before. Um, but I think, yeah, you know, we've been exposed to new art over and over and over again, and the bar keeps raising itself, or just expanding. Really, you know, it's not like things are topping any other projects, but yeah, it's just like continues to be full of surprises. I'm constantly surprised at myself at how addicted I am to like checking my Discord all the time. And things like that, and how excited it is from a curation perspective to see new projects all the time and see those evolve. Um, but it's just the sense of community, the natural growth that's happened, the like positivity that exists in a space that often uh, feels a little fake and you know, not that. So yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
Cool. Yeah. So now I'm curious. You know, can we take a look at your gallery? I want to see. And I think a lot of
We
people would
can,
love
but
to see some remnants.
I'm like, Dandy's gonna come and put me to shame afterwards. So we can look at mine. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
We're gonna swap over. There we go.
All right. I made this gallery the other day. So this is just some of my curated projects, and what mixed in with a few playground and factory projects that I just really love. So I'll just scroll through and feel free to stop me if you want.
Yeah. So it looks like you're really big on building sets of three,
I
at
would
least.
say I don't know. I really love. I would say I'm more inspired by what other people have done in building sets than I'm pretty indecisive in certain ways. I'm not
Yeah.
indecisive when judging a curated project, but I'm pretty indecisive when like trying to put sets together. So I've tried to do it a little bit, but I don't think that I've been nearly as successful as some of the community members, and I've been really inspired by what people are doing. I think I have a feeling that art blocks and this sense of curation, self-curation, is opening up a new side of creativity that people probably didn't have before. And I think that's really exciting, because I think a lot of people that don't come from a creative background probably never get to flex those muscles or even recognize that they have them. So it's been super exciting to see other people doing that. And I, as someone who thinks that I am creative and come from a creative background, I'm almost feeling like I'm, you know, not as not as successful yet. But maybe that's part of it. It's just second guessing yourself.
Yeah. Do
And
you
the
mind?
sets start to fall apart here towards the bottom.
No, I think it's super cool, and you have a full art block curation set, right? Like you have
I do.
one piece from every single curated project since the beginning.
I do. There's actually two right here, but
Oh
yeah,
wow,
I got, I
that's
got,
amazing.
I got, I got the bug. Uh,
I think I
but
got the
yeah, and
bug.
I don't,
I got
I
the
don't know
bug
how
around the
long
same
I'll.
time as you.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all did, but I don't know how long I'll
Sorry,
keep that
continue.
going. Yeah, yeah. Eric has been doing this for much longer than any of us, starting with his punks. So I blame Eric. I think we should all blame Eric for this addiction, but it's been exciting. I don't know how sustainable it'll be, and I don't want to like make it an unhealthy thing, but it's a fun thing to sort of to try to pick out. And it also, I think it's fun to like support all the artists that are on the platform in a way, in that
Yeah,
sense. So,
absolutely.
but I think I'm just like scraping the surface as far as really thinking about pairing pieces from other projects together.
Hmm.
I think this one like does it really well.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite mint out of all these pieces,
Uh,
or
what was
two? I
that?
mean, you can pick more than one. There's a
I know
lot of
you
good
asked me
ones
this
in your
question.
collection.
Um, what was I gonna say is my favorite mint specifically that I minted? Um, Now I'm gonna forget if I actually minted the projects or not. But
Wow, you're just
I really love the pump. I got super lucky on the pump. I was grocery shopping that day, and like everybody else, I was glued to my computer for hours and hours on end. And then I was like, I have to go to the grocery store. I'm running out of time before I had to, go do some work or something. So I was at the grocery store and I was leaving after checking out. And I looked at my phone and I think I looked at the Discord and it had released. So I like jumped on my phone in the parking lot and was able to mint one right before the limit. I think I got number 37, but it felt really close to the end anyway. So I really love that one. I mean, I just not just the like process of getting it or the luck of getting it, but I think it's just like they're incredibly meditative pieces. And I think it shows a lot of restraint what he did to just create these things that sort of breathe with you, especially the ones that have the pace that this one does.
definitely.
So that's a favorite for sure as far as minting. Um, I really love this algorithms that I got a little bit ago.
That's a
I
nice one.
love these sort of two-tone monotone things. I love these metallic subscapes, which Dandy will talk about more and will just like blow me out of the water. They've got a really beautiful complementary one to this that they should probably have this one to complement it. But yeah, I
What
don't know, and obviously
what about the
I think we're
goose?
probably, yeah, I know, I was gonna say we're probably about to talk about the goose. I also really love this corner that I just got because and this two-tone this two-tone subscape. I felt pretty privileged to get those. But
Wow.
yeah, so the goose, obviously the goose is like something that's like has its own mystique and personality or whatever. But it was a really special thing to get. And honestly, when I had started going after it, when had started bidding on it, I have to admit I didn't even see the goose. I just thought it was like a really cool composition. And for a while, I think maybe the persona of the goose might have felt a little corny to me, and maybe like uh, I don't know if I was as hyped about it for a second, but I really embraced it, and I loved like that it has this very unique personality in the community, and it was a fun and lucky. It was a very fortunate moment at the time because there was like a 5 day. There was a 5 day auction that the person who minted it had put up. And on the first day, I had started minting. And then I looked back at it earlier today to make sure that I remember this right. But Dimitri had posted that the goose was on auction, like in all caps, and like with a bunch of hype. and I was like, oh man, well, I'm never gonna get it because I only had like 1.5 ETH in my wallet or whatever. And then like right after that, I don't know if the minter saw it or saw the comment or what, but they accepted a 1.3 ETH uh, bid before the auction was even close to being done,
Oh wow.
which is a comment on OpenSea's auctioning mechanisms, but I'm okay with it. So anyway, it felt like it was like kismet, you know. It felt really lucky to have it, and I'm happy to be the steward of
That's
this
awesome.
meme.
Yeah, I mean, the goose is just like iconic in the Ringers channel. I think we see it, every other day, which is it's just a nice reminder.
It makes me smile every day. It's great.
Yeah, same here. So you are a photographer. I would love to see just like a couple pieces of your art. Like, how would you describe your style of photography?
Yeah, so I'm an architectural photographer by trade. So architectural photography tends to be pretty like crisp and clean lined and really like highly processed sort of. So I think I sort of excel at that. But from a fine art perspective, I have a couple different. I don't really have like a specific style of work that I create from a fine art sense because I sort of just try some things out and it evolves. So this project right now that I'm scrolling through is called Crossings. It was something that I started several years ago um, when I first discovered drones, and I was trying to figure out. I've always wanted to shoot stuff from above, and I figured out this sort of template to where I could take photos of intersections from fixed positions above them from like the same elevation, and then randomly tile them together to create kind of like quilted view of whatever city I was in. So I live in Houston, so the first one is Houston. And that's what I've minted here on Ephemera, which Ephemera is a really cool platform for people that aren't familiar with it for lens-based artists like video and photography artists. Eric told me about this a long time ago. Um, so it's cool. I'm just kind of trying it out. I've been minting 5 of these every 2 weeks. I have 5 more of the Houston series, and then I may give it a little break. And then there's a series from Venice, Italy, going over to my website, that is like a complementary series of a city that's just completely different than Houston, much more organic and medieval in its origins and scale. So I showed the two side by side in Venice, Italy, at the Venice Architecture Biennale in 2016. And I'm just sort of testing out the waters for where photography might fit into the NFT space, which is a much different animal than generative art. And then below that, there's this project that I call Terraforms that is these landscape kind of really stylized dark landscape photos taken in the middle of the night, like starscapes, and then I go in and illustrate kind of what I would imagine like a low poly mesh overlay would look like, to just sort of blend like my perception of the physical world and the digital. So I've just minted a handful of those, and it's very experimental. I did the one that I just showed years ago, and I really love it, and it's never been shown anywhere. I never really knew what to do with it, so it was a fun reason. It seemed like a fitting place to put it out here in the digital world. And of course, Eric collected it before anybody else could have a chance. So thanks, Eric.
It's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, and then the last one we'll show just because, Marfa. Can you guys see that? I just went full screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Prada Marfa, which people have probably heard of or seen if they've been to Marfa, or will see if they're going to Marfa. And a couple New Years ago, we spent New Year's in Marfa. Eric and his family and my girlfriend and I and Manuel, who we talked about earlier, and his husband. And anyway, Manuel had told us that there was a meteor shower happening, and I was like, oh, where should I go shoot it? And I settled on running over to Prada Marfa, which is not, it's like a 45-minute drive away from Marfa, and it was like 1 a.m. and we shot these meteors coming down. So I was trying to figure out a way to animate that experience. So I erased the meteors from the final photo, and then I digitally put in these meteors and did like a looping video. So that's this one, meteors over Morphium.
Cool. Those are
That's
fantastic pieces.
yeah,
And
thanks.
that one's on Foundation, that
It is on
Marvel.
Foundation. And believe it or not, Eric also collected that one. So
Okay.
sorry again, everyone. But he was there. It's like a meaningful piece for him. So
Yeah.
we'll give him a pass. But yeah, so that's my only foray into Foundation. I'm sure I'll do more eventually, but I'm sort of a passive creator, I think. When you're a full-time professional photographer, sometimes your creative endeavors ebb and flow, um, for better or worse. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
yeah, thanks for
As we
asking.
kind of wrap up for this segment, what's one piece of advice that you give to people who are new to art blocks? New collectors, people that are just learning about generative art, or what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, so maybe this is when I should have said that thing about collecting, but I would say the first thing is to like go at your own pace, buy what you like first. Don't think about it as an investment experience. Think of it as a foray into a new genre of art. Um, for creators, I think like I said earlier, just create what you think is a true representation of your creative outlet, and hopefully you'll get you know genuine reaction and feedback, and hopefully collectorship from that. But yeah, just come in with an open mind and be kind to one another, like Eric says, and enjoy the sense of community that you'll get. That if nothing else, you don't even have to buy pieces. You can just come in there and like chat with everyone and appreciate the work that's being created and the community sense of community that's being created, and you're going to come away with it
Yeah, and
pretty
I
well.
find it
So
I find it so unique because you can actually communicate with the artists themselves. If you have questions about the
absolutely.
piece, projects, upcoming projects, they're super welcoming to answer any questions that you might have. I just love that about the
Yeah,
community.
and artists. I mean, sorry, and collectors. Like it's just this like completely transparent and open sense of flow of communication from all directions, which is a pretty rare thing, I think, these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you have any like social media plugs, or how can people reach out to you? If they want to ask you a question.
Yeah, I'm on Discord more than I would like to admit. So you can DM me there. My DMs are open. And also I'm pixelpete on Twitter. I didn't have a Twitter before all this, but apparently just reposting a bunch of art block stuff and hyping art blocks is working. So feel free to reach out to me there. And then my Instagram for my real world is Peter Malik, at Peter Malik, and that'll be linked somewhere, I'm sure. So
Okay,
feel free
great.
to follow me there.
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much, Pixel Pete,
Yeah.
for spending time talking to us about a little bit about the curation board and also sharing a little bit of your art block collection.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to hear the next chat here.
Absolutely. Well, next up we have a fantastic and just incredible collector, Dandelion. How are you doing? I
Hey,
think.
I'm doing
Oh, there
pretty
you
well
go.
today.
Yeah.
Yep.
How are you
Yeah,
doing?
doing pretty well. Glad to be here.
Well, yeah. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here and for yeah. I'm obviously incredibly excited to see your collection, but I kind of want to start at the beginning. How did you learn about art blocks and the NFT space?
So my first foray into NFTs was CryptoKitties back in 2017, which was pure FOMO. I just did it because everyone else was talking about it, and in my perception, I really got burned. I didn't actually care about these kitties. I didn't have really much of an emotional connection to it. And then when the market fell out and people stopped talking about CryptoKitties, I was just like, cool, lesson learned. NFTs are dumb. Don't bother with these things. And then I started hearing whispers of punks. And I was just like, I already learned my lesson. I don't need to get any punks. I don't need to look into any more of this. But I had a friend who I really trusted, just kept on being like, no, you should really like actually think about what's going on here. And then I really had like one weekend where I really like thought about CryptoPunks. I thought about the appeal. I thought about the fact that there really was a fixed supply, which was never true with CryptoKitties, and a way in which I'm really fascinated by economic systems and the way that CryptoPunks could become a Schelling point for kind of coordination and reputation and like cred in the Ethereum space. It really started to click for me. So I bought a Punk. That was my first post CryptoKitty NFT. And then as I was orienting on the space, I started to follow people. I followed DC Investor, and I saw his gallery. And as I was scrolling through, I was looking at all this stuff. Okay, he's got autoglyphs. Okay, he's got punks. Okay, he's got ringers. And I saw archetypes, and archetypes just really stood out to me. I was like, wow, this like aesthetically, this just like precisely like works for my brain. And so I immediately just like went and looked up where they came from. And I saw, I started looking through the archetypes, and this is actually the time when this cube, archetype 250, one of the cubes, was available. So I was like, wow, I think this is one of the greatest archetypes, and I like the opportunity to own this NFT. This is wild. So I just kind of barreled into it from that starting point.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So, were you aware of generative art then prior to art blocks?
Yeah, I had a long-standing interest in generative art. I'd like kind of fooled around with like creating some little generative art systems myself. I think for me, what really like clicked with art blocks that hadn't clicked before is I think generative art can kind of have this ephemeral quality where because the algorithm has infinite possibility, and infinity is awesome, but infinity is also kind of overwhelming, and it's hard to become too attached to things. You look up at the stars in the sky and it's like, well, like how do I care about this star or that star? There's so many of them. And I think that with art blocks and NFTs in general, the fact that it does add this degree of scarcity, you don't have to think about the 100 trillion possible fascinating outputs of the Fidenza algorithm because there are only these 999 to really focus and appreciate. I think it actually kind of creates the space to develop a much deeper connection with the piece. So I think that's part of how like for me, like personally speaking, I feel like generative art really like comes home when it's intersected with crypto in this really interesting way.
Awesome. Well, yeah, now I'm obviously really excited. I would love to just see some of the mints in your collection. If you could talk about some of the mints that just spoke to you, why you collected them. It looks like a lot of them are being built in sets. But yeah, I would just love to see.
Yeah. So let's see. So I've got this this top set of 9. I'm not sure if there's a good word for a set of 9, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. This top set of 9 is just focused on my like 3 gems, an autoglyph, a hex pump, and cube. And I'll kind of talk about the pump a bit. For me, I'm really interested in like kind of having personal senses of emotional narrative or emotional connection to pieces I collect. And so with the pump, this is a tiny mint. There are only 50 pumps. They are, I think extremely coveted. I constantly get DMs from people being like, "Hey, are you willing to trade this pump?" And like, no, sorry, I won't. And I'd wanted to get a pump for a while. And what was happening was this was back when Ethereum was skyrocketing. Ethereum was like 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000. And everyone was getting really scared of spending their ETH. And so it actually became quite an art blocks bear market because people were like, whoa, art blocks isn't rising, ETH did. Did I make a mistake putting all this ETH here? And I wound up like in this storm of volatility, like ETH was skyrocketing. Then all of a sudden ETH was crashing. It like went down 50% in a little over a week. And this pump was one that had been on the market and I'd been looking at it for a while. But I feel like, if you look at the eternal pumps, let me see if I can pull this up easily. A lot of these pumps, the pumps are just so like optimistic. They're so cheery. They've got such bright colors. I love these diagonal ones that look like they're sort of going to the moon. I think number 3 is a hex pump that really like captures a sense of optimism. And at the time, pump 15, it like it's a lot more meditative. It's a lot more calm. It's a lot more pulled back. The color palette is kind of subdued, and I kind of didn't quite emotionally connect with it. And so I'd seen it on the market for a while, and I was just passing because I was like, I don't know why I should be the person who has this pump. And then I realized that for me, like as I was sitting there being like, what mistakes have I made? Was it a mistake to put all this ETH into art blocks? Was it a mistake to like not like sell ETH when it was at 4,000? I realized that for me, this pump just became the perfect meditation of like the market goes out, the market comes in, it like creates opportunity, it creates emotion, and you've got to, don't fight it, just respect it. And so once I saw that, and I realized also the market turbulence had created this perfect opportunity to pick up this pump because it had been priced for $4,000 ETH and now it's on sale with $2,000 ETH. That just be for me like it's like now like I've got a story that binds me to this pump in my personal like kind of journey as a collector. And I think that for me, that's what like makes a piece really significant, is if it feels like, oh, this is not like I think what's fascinating about NFTs is like anyone could go and print this art and put it on their wall. Anyone could like make it their desktop background. But by owning the NFT, you have an opportunity to really have a sense of personal connection to the work. And so I think that's one of the things I'm most interested in exploring like, as a collector.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I love your archetypes, just the trio that you have over there. You have a paper armada on the right. You have, yeah, I mean, your subscapes also. I would love to hear what you have to say about all your subscapes, because you have a beautiful collection of those.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say the another thing that I tend to really do is, it's funny how much I'm learning about my own aesthetic taste just from seeing what really pulls me in the pieces I collect. And I really love pastels, gentle purples, gentle blues, gentle pinks. And so a lot of the stuff I've collected, if you look at like my collection of messengers, like I really love this from the Forge palette. I'm like a huge fan of this watercolor dreams. Like in my mind, it's one of the most beautiful watercolor dreams, just because the colors and shapes are so tender. I
Yeah,
think
that palette is
um,
fantastic.
it really is. But I would say that with the subscapes, I started by picking up this subscape, and it really was just, it seemed like a cheap subscape, and I liked the colors, so I grabbed it. And it's one of those things that just kind of like snowballed from there, because I was like, wow, like I really love this palette. How can I complement it? And so I wound up actually trading a frameless archetype, like a really beautiful archetype, for this subscape. It's not loading here, so I'll just go back to the gallery. But it's this peach plum summit, which I live close to Mount Rainier in Seattle, and so I think for me this subscape feels like the Mount Rainier subscape. The way that, particularly around sunset, light will hit the snow on the side of the mountain and it just glows. Uh, and then yeah, I think subscapes are just like a really like beautiful and fascinating algorithm. I've got these inverted set that kind of feel like they're a progressive deconstruction. Like you start in the top right with this stippled peach plum subscape, and then it's like the color drops out as you go down a level, and then like the texture drops down as you go one more level. Like it's just like exploring things becoming like reduced towards oblivion. Uh, you know, Pete was mentioning this subscape, the metallic summit, which I'm now trying to work to collect a couple other of the pieces that just really like complemented from a color palette perspective. Um, yeah, I think that it's like, I think there's so many dimensions from which to appreciate like collecting. I think it makes sense to think about it from a purely aesthetic dimension, and like what are the pieces that really resonate with you. I think it makes sense to think about it as like an investment, because clearly like there is a strong economic component that's like driving this whole market forward. And I think in my mind, it also makes sense to see it as a game where it's like, how can you find like beautiful trades that bring pieces that complement each other together? And I think that one of the really interesting things from my perspective with uh, curating generative art is I feel like there's a two-part process where the artist comes up with an intention, they come up with an algorithm, and then they project that through randomness. And then on the other end, the collectors are kind of catching the pieces of intention now wrapped with randomness and finding ways to like regroup them together. So I think of the curative process there as being a pretty like unique, almost like three-party dance with like the artist and the collector on one side, and then the algorithm, and then just the randomness of the blockchain in the middle.
Yeah, I think you said it beautifully. Just I think once when I'm trying to like teach friends and family about this stuff, I think you said it perfectly. Yeah, there's a process of the artist, doing something, and then you have to curate your own pieces from what's available in the market. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
So
to
you,
actually, I think if I can just bring attention to
yeah,
like
yeah,
one curated set that I think is really incredible. This is Bonafide Hans Fidenza's collection, which is bonafidehan.art. I really would like encourage anyone to take a look. But one of my favorite pieces in the set here is this row of green micro uniform Fidenzas, and Han has titled this "Wind Through the Grass." And if you look at it closely, and like this is something that really benefits from having a large screen, you really see it, right? It really looks like grass that like first is still and then is just being like gently pushed around by flowing wind. And one of the things that's really incredible here is that these are actually the only four micro uniform cadenzas in this palette. And so it was just an incredibly improbable event that there would be exactly four of these and that they would feel so cohesive. And it makes me wonder, like, is it incredibly lucky that like these four like all appeared, that they worked together so well and then got picked up by the same like committed collector? Like clearly there's a great deal of luck. At the same time, you can ask, was it inevitable, given the expressiveness of this algorithm, that there would be some like incredible connections and people would find them? And I think that if you look through the rest of Hans' collection here, he's got so many like fascinating, like well composed, like emotionally evocative pairings. And so I think it really speaks to the role that a collector can play in like discovering new stories within the output of the algorithm.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the collection that they have is basically, in my opinion, like exhibit and gallery worthy, 100%.
I entirely agree. Yeah, this is actually something I'm working on with a friend who's really talented with the smart contracts. Is coming up with a way, like I think that one of the things I find most compelling with art blocks, with autoglyphs, with def beef, is the on-chain provenance and the fact that you really have this single artifact in the Ethereum blockchain that I think we as a civilization are going to be, for purely economic reasons, committing to like maintain in perpetuity. And I think it'd be really cool to create technologies that allow curators and collectors to make the curation process also reified on chain. So you can have an on chain act where you like put these pieces together in their own smart contract, and now like you can see like, okay, this piece was curated by Bonafide Han on like such and such date, and that just becomes part of the legacy of these pieces.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that idea. So I know you are a huge AlgoBot fan. I know you have. I mean, how many do you have? It's like 40 or 50 of
I
them.
think I've got somewhere between 50 and 60
Oh
AlgoBots.
wow. Okay.
Uh,
So I'm curious. I want to jump into later on about like the AlgoBot DAO, but why AlgoBots? Like, what drew you into picking up so many different pieces?
yeah, so as I said, I tend to really like approach collecting from a perspective of personal emotional resonance. And for me, AlgoBots just really resonated. They make me think a lot of like two things. So on the one hand, I really love the cartoon Steven universe. I think it's just for me one of my favorite and like most cohesive pieces of fiction. On the surface, it's like a cartoon, kind of a child's cartoon, but it's actually just like a super deep well of like emotional lessons, of like thoughtful perspective on conflict, on like paths for growth. And the AlgoBots, like I think aesthetically feel like they kind of could be in that universe. I think that for me also, like I feel like there's a certain kind of person who I think is most iconically or quintessentially being open source software maintainers. These are the people who just like show up day to day. They do really like hard, complicated work in the background. They're not like out there like on main stages. They're not getting tons of attention. They just kind of make the world work behind the scenes. And for me, I think that AlgoBots really like evoked that like kind of person in particular. These like cheerful little robots who've got many different expressions, but in my imagination are like always there to help. And so yeah, I kind of also picked up all these AlgoBots because I had this vision of like creating an AlgoBots cartoon and just like taking this like this crypto native like concept and then trying to connect it with the world of traditional media and traditional uh like like storytelling, and see if we could create something new.
That's awesome. And you're the only person that you have the 50 or 60 of them, but you have from each of the traits you hold basically an AlgoBot that fits every single trait available, correct?
Yeah, I've actually so I've got I had a friend help me come up with like a script. It's a sat solver to find the minimal set of AlgoBots that can have every single trait at least once, like every color, every body type, every eye, etc. And so I wound up, on the first day when everything was in flight, I just like really spent a lot of ETH to get one of those minimal sets. It's exactly 13 AlgoBots that like perfectly encompass every trait. So I'm not. It's one of those things where it's really like kind of hard to show off because it's like, well, you have to like look very carefully, and like there's two different kind of grayish colors. I think it's like tanzanite and hematite or something. But yeah, I put together the set of 13 AlgoBots. It's like the AlgoBot Omni team.
That's awesome. And I feel like this is one of the only projects where, there are repeats. So there are twins and triplets, and a very small number of them within this project, correct? And you have a couple of them.
Yeah, there was actually two possible triplets, and one of those triplets has been united, and that's these three happy teal AlgoBots down here. And I don't know where I put it right now, but I've got a cool piece of art in which the triplets are overlaid on one of the 70s pop series, and I called it the AlgoBots triplet summoning circle.
Oh, wow.
Um, but yeah, there's also a couple twins. Like I think these two are twins. These two are twins. I think the fact that twins exist and triplets exist is like a pretty fun feature of the
Yeah.
AlgoBots.
Yeah, I think it's just very unique that a lot of other projects, obviously don't have. So I want to talk about the AlgoBot DAO, but for people that are new, especially new to the NFT space, crypto space, what is a DAO?
So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. DAOs, generally speaking, are token-driven communities. So the communities that exist on the blockchain where membership in the community or governance of the community is determined by holding a token. Some of the classic examples. The original DAO was called the DAO, and it was this attempt to raise a bunch of money and basically be an on-chain venture capital investor. But unfortunately, the DAO I think had a reentrancy attack, and it wound up getting hacked, having a lot of funds drained out of it, and that led to a fork. So if you've heard of the Ethereum and Ethereum Classic fork, that was actually because the first DAO had a serious bug in its smart contract. Today there are hundreds, probably thousands, maybe tens of thousands of DAOs, ranging from DAOs that are producing financial infrastructure, DAOs that are maintaining open source software, DAOs that are collecting art, Flamingo DAO and Fingerprints DAO, Meebits DAO, Pleaser DAO. Yeah. And then the vision for AlgoBots DAO is to be the DAO that's kind of focused on like promoting AlgoBots, kind of, especially I think creating the around AlgoBots. I've been working behind the scenes with Stina and with a couple, Stina Jones being the artist who created the AlgoBots drop, and a couple of like creatives based in LA around pitching this AlgoBots cartoon. So we've actually got like kind of a whole script, like some initial scripts for an AlgoBots cartoon. We've done a lot of like world building, like what is this universe that AlgoBots inhabit? How do they interact with humans? Like what are they doing in the world? It's kind of this like this world in which humanity, like we know humans are like on this sort of beat up ship, like escaping some unknown catastrophe, and the AlgoBots have kind of mysteriously appeared to kind of help them, and they're like both maintaining the ship but also like hiding behind the scenes. And it's at about the point where I think like we could actually raise funds from the community and then just go and like try producing this cartoon and see how it resonates with folks. But this is actually where I want to make my pitch, which is my main problem is I'm excited about lots of things and I have way too many things in my plate. And so I'm realizing like I've got a ton of creative passion and like even a vision like that I want to like help produce with AlgoBots, but I don't have sufficient executive bandwidth to be like, I'm going to like lead this charge and like feel like I won't drop it because I've got other things that I'm doing that have more people like already kind of like committed to it. So if somebody wants to like help realize this AlgoBots vision, please reach out to me because we've got a ton of cool pieces in flight. We've got like smart contracts, we've got this like script, but it needs someone who wants to like help like land the execution, you know?
Absolutely. And how can people, get involved? I know they can reach out to you, but there is a Discord, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a Discord. I would say like hopping if people hop in the Discord and they're like, hey, like I want to help, then we can probably like turn on like a call with the people who want to help and like I can start connecting like more crypto native people with like the writer and like kind of LA talent person who like can help us like land the execution as far as making a cartoon. But yeah, I think there's some more like more people and energy could be helpful.
Absolutely. Well, we love what you've done so far. I've been a part of the AlgoBot DAO myself, and I know you've been leading the charge on that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing where that all lands over the next several months. Uh, but yeah, as we kind of wrap this up, what do you love most about the Art Blocks community? I know you're a big collector. Uh, just obviously seeing from your collection. But yeah, what do you love about the community in general?
You know, I would say I love how many people are like really in it for the art and like really like sincerely and like passionately care about it. I feel like, oftentimes in spaces where there are such strong financial incentives, they can kind of take over everything. And I feel like among other things, the art blocks community has got really good moderation, and that's like helped like just like maintain the vibe even as the community's been growing. But yeah, I just really appreciate how respectful people are, how like down people are to just like jam out about art, to like make cool trades, to get excited about cool drops.
Great. And then finally, what is one piece of advice you would give to a new collector that's entering, the crypto space or the Art Blocks platform?
So I would say the first and most important piece of advice is use a hardware wallet, and like use a hardware wallet and audit your recovery process. So test out what would happen if you lost your seed. I mean, sorry, if you lost the wallet, you need to regenerate from seed. It's way too easy with you're not using hardware wallet to make mistakes you'll really regret. I would say that shifting out of the purely technical and like practical advice, I would say just like really know why you're collecting and what success will look like to you. I think that for my part, like it is really easy to FOMO. It is really easy to see your positions are doing well and be euphoric, to see your positions are underwater and be crushed. And those are rough emotions. For me, I've kind of realized like I think that this is a really like fascinating cultural moment, both in terms of Ethereum coming into its own as a cultural space, and in terms of generative art really coming to its own. And so my goal is to have a collection that I just find really personally significant. And I care about the ETH valuations, especially because if I buy pieces that do well, then I can trade them really well for lots of other pieces that I'll want. But I think that for me, knowing that ultimately, like I'm not here because I'm hoping to like exit my position at some multiple of where I got in, it really helps me sleep at night, and especially in those times when the market turns against you, which those sort of times are always going to come. It's just really nice if you know the reasons why you were there, and it was more than just like trying to exit at a profit.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dandelion and aka DandeCollects, for talking to us about AlgoBot DAO, your Art Blocks collection, and yeah, for just being here and talking to us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, next I am going to jump into the Art Block Mints channel, and I think a lot of people know what that means. So make sure you, if you want to enter in for a giveaway, a Chromie Squiggle giveaway, you got less than 1 minute. We kind of set the timer a little bit lower this week, and I think we are going to change how we do the giveaway, moving forward, for specific reasons that we can talk about another time. But yeah, about 40 seconds left. During this time, I don't know, Eric, aka Snowfro, do you have anything that you want to add? Any news, anything upcoming that you want to share with us?
Hey everybody, hope y'all are doing all right. I'm coming at you from South Texas, where I got a little bit of sun today, if you can't tell. We're working hard on this Marfa opening. It's coming up in what, 91 days, maybe sub 90 days. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time. I'm going to go meet Masood and Marfa later this week and kind of hash out some of the specifics of it. We're working on minting mechanics. I'll be the first to admit we had a crazy March and everything was like gas wars, and then things kind of died for a little while. So the person we were working with to kind of get that mechanics down kind of took their time, and it wasn't really kind of moving very fast, but like this pressure wasn't there. And then obviously, like, once again, we have this pressure. So we are working through various different ways of making it. Each artist is going to get to pick a different way that they want to deploy, and we're probably going to test things out on Factory, where like an artist is going to be able to pick this mechanic and this mechanic, this mechanic. We will probably continue experiencing some gas wars and Curated, because I think these mechanics shouldn't be applied to Curated until they've been fully vetted. But yeah, we're working towards it. We're trying really hard to get that to where it needs to be. Understanding full well that the cycle that we're in right now is not. I mean, maybe it's unsustainable that it could continue this strong forever. So we might see a little bit of a calm eventually. Other than that, still working on our website. We gave mods access to the new website and got some good feedback from them. And I know Ben Dogbot is working through some of those initial pieces. So I think, and I have a meeting with them tomorrow, but I think that maybe later this week we'll be able to start adding some more people into the beta. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, Pete, it's great to see you sitting in my old house with a projector behind you, talking about collecting art blocks. Dandy, man, I'm just so impressed with the way that you talk about your mints and your art. And thanks for being around, man. We love what you're doing.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we did.
It's for you guys.
Well, it looks like we did get a winner. Congratulations to Freddie, who won the Chromie Squiggle.
All right, Freddie, send me, if you can hear me, send me.
Yeah, if Freddie can send, their wallet information to Snowfro, we'll go ahead and process a new Squiggle.
And there's like very little air conditioning where I am right now, so I'm just kind of.
Oh no.
Plus, I was in the sun all day. Plus, my laptop is like heating up my lab. Good times. So, I'm glad I can make it. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it tonight, so I was pretty excited to make it.
Yeah, we're glad you can make it tonight.
All right, I have an ETH address. Looks like Freddie is a human. That's good. Yeah. I was always concerned with that lately. And is the screen shared? Well, I guess I could always just see it.
We're going to change it right
now. The Mint channel.
Oh, it looks like it's not coming through. Yeah, it's not coming through, but I can copy and paste it into the thread, not a problem.
You can see the shock on my face when it's a crazy one. Oh, or
ooh.
Whoa, that is crazy looking one.
That's a really nice one.
I've never seen anything like that before.
Like the tallest squiggle I've ever seen.
Yeah. Especially at the bottom, it kind of like has that small ridge, and then it just like shoots right back up.
Wow.
It's like ETH also in May.
The spread, yeah, right.
In July, whatever.
The spread of that is pretty huge too, though, because like that spectrum, the orange and red spectrum is pretty small. So sweet, congrats, Freddie. Yeah. So happy to have you in the Squiggle Club if you didn't already have one.
Cool.
And then, yeah, Panyo hinted at the fact that we might kind of figure out some different ways of doing the Squiggle Mint, just because, the value of the Squiggle has kind of gotten to a point where, as with everything else in blockchain, the chances that it could be gamed are significantly higher. And, we kind of had our nice little show here with consistently 40, then 50, then 60 people entering. Kind of curious where we ended up on this.
It's one. Like over 100.
136. So that's not so bad. But yeah. So we'll probably try to find ways to like reward people for doing curated cool stuff, or people that get lucky with. But we'll figure something out. It'll be fun though. It'll be awesome, and I'm excited about that as well.
And if anyone has any suggestions on things that we could do potentially for these giveaways, just let us know, and we'll definitely look into it.
Yeah, there will be a Squiggle. No, even if a Squiggle is $100,000 one day, there will be a Squiggle given away every single Sunday. We just absolutely want to make sure that if it's going, it's these people that are willing to spend their Sunday evenings with us. To me, it means a lot. I mean, I don't know, you know, I have 2 children, and so my Sunday evenings are usually I'm pretty beat, but it's like I still come, and I just am so excited to be able to participate like this. And so we're grateful to all the folks that come around, and we want to, you know, make sure that we keep saying thank you with the random squiggle mint every week.
Excellent. Well, yeah, if you don't have anything else, Snowfro, I think we're about to close up. You don't have anything? You're all good?
No, I just want to say thanks, everybody. Love you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you. Well, I want to say thank you to all of our guests. Obviously, Snowfro for creating this platform, because without that, we would definitely not be here this evening. To pixelpete for talking to us about the curation board, sharing their collection, and for DandeCollects for showing their incredible subscape, you know, AlgoBot, archetype. I mean, just overall, just incredible art block collection. So thank you all 3 of you for being on this evening. Just as a reminder, you know, we have Discord on the right side of the screen if you're watching the live stream, and that's where, Art Block's Discord is basically where the entire community lives. So if you're an artist, if you're interested in learning about generative art, or maybe you want to be an artist and, you know, you're considering applying when it opens up in a couple weeks, you know, jump on the Discord and just jump in one of the channels, ask around if you need anything, and I'm sure someone would love to help you around. And I guarantee you somebody will definitely help you get around, because we have such a fantastic community, and I feel so honored and grateful to just, you know, share this space with everyone. On top of that, you know, comment, like, subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel. And as always, be excellent to each other, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Pino. Thanks, Luke. I know you're back
Bye,
here
guys.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Y'all take care.
He's here. He says bye.
Bye.
Have a great one.